Hi, I'm Jason Gore for ThatShelf.com, and we're here to look at Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy, the new vinyl release from Elton John.
Big change.
It's a funny record for me. I'm a huge Elton John fan, as any fan of this channel knows. But when I had listened to stuff like Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, in its entirety, but really where I got into sort of classic period Elton John was the Elton John box set, the CD box set, the 4 CD set that came out. I really love the design that if you put all 4 CDs together, they formed sort of a version of his face. And that's really where I learned about a bunch of songs that otherwise I wouldn't have known at all. I think of Carly Etude from the Fox record, for example, something that I absolutely adored, something that I would also sort of associate with the Live in Australia record, and the sweeping stuff that he did that came out at sort of a perfect time. So when he was doing this sort of like real poppy stuff, the stuff that he did with Australia was really how I learned about quote-unquote classic Elton John through that. Yes, I'd heard stuff like Your Song, etc., Tiny Dancer, but really it was either the orchestral versions or all that I sort of heard the sort of earlier hits, the sort of his imperial period, as a bunch of musicologists are calling it these days. But it was really when these guys came out, when the SACD, the multi-channel SACDs came out, and right in the sort of heart of the format war between DVD audio and SACD. The Universal sort of sided in this case, in the Super Audio CD, wasn't quite the Sony Warner divide that it had, that where you had stuff that was very obvious that the Warner stuff was over here and the Sony stuff was over here. Universal, just like they did with Blu-ray and HD DVD, kind of sort of settled in on one, but weren't as committed as others. But one artist that they definitely committed to was Elton John, who released multi-channel mixes of his records. Most of the classic ones. The only one really that wasn't known was Rock of the Westies. I'm never quite sure why that one never actually sort of got the same treatment as these guys. But that period where he was just getting like releasing number one after number one after number one record was pretty extraordinary to actually experience in multi-channel, and a real interesting way of actually diving in. There's now Atmos mixes. We've shown that on this channel for many of the quote-unquote hits. But these 5.1 mixes really truly stand the test of time, and they're just an amazing way into the record. And this again is an interesting one because unlike Goodbye Yellow Brick Road or even the Elton John record, the other records that sort of came out in that period. Really, this one had kind of one hit on it. Someone Saved My Life Tonight, which plays an integral role not only in Elton's own story, but if you watch Rocket Man, you know how important it is, literally, about time that he actually considered taking his own life right when he was in the midst of relationship and self-identity crisis. But that's the sort of big song that came out of this. But really, this is just like Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, which is set as a song cycle. It isn't quite a concept album. This really is, in many ways, the concept album. This is the sort of autobiographical record. And oftentimes when bands, write songs about being on the road and stuff like that, sometimes they're disasters, sometimes they turn into Joe's Garage or other stuff that's happened. He was on the road so much that many of his songs sort of did that, and sometimes they really work. You think of Jackson Browne's records about being on the road, etc. Some very interesting stuff diving in there, but a lot of times it's just a real lazy way of doing it. Unsurprisingly. Again, I'm thinking of all the good ones, stuff like Deep Purple. Smoke in the Water is obviously one of the great gig songs of all time. Anyway, this allowed me to hear songs like the title track from this, Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy, which is essentially the narrative of these two individuals. One, the Brit who really loves Americana very much, is writing the lyrics. That's Bernie Taupin, of course, and Captain Fantastic, the titular character of this record, which is of course Elton. And so this allowed me to listen to that track, which has some of my absolute favorite stuff that Elton does. The Jaws harp stuff that actually goes, and there's a drop to the tonic, which is such a nerdy thing to point out, but right after it just goes into the chorus. It's like it's just sort of hitting, and it's just like it's hovering with this da 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 da, and then it just right to the tonic, climbing up this sort of, I guess it's a 1-3-4-5 thing if I'm doing it correctly. It's musically just hits me so hard, and then just breaks into this giant sort of element of the chorus. The synths are sweeping, the instruments sweeping, and then it kicks back to this sort of loping sort of country vibe. I love it so much. It reminds me a little bit of Love Stronger Than Justice by Sting, a country song with elements in 7/8 and then going into this kick in 4/4. Great. I love this sort of thing. But yeah, Tower Babel, Bitter Fingers, Tell Me When the Whistle Blows, The Someone Saved My Life Tonight, Gotta Get a Meal Ticket, Better Off Dead, Writing, We All Fall in Love Sometimes, Curtains, is the original record. And then on here are some of the bonus tracks that actually, and again, given the multi-channel treatment of the big singles, or at least bonus elements, they're actually done at the same time. So this is where his version of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds takes place. It's sort of set. I know people don't love this iteration. It actually has John on it. I kind of love his reggae version. I love his cover of it. I like when Elton John actually does this sort of stuff. I mean, I love an official stuff of Nick Drake recordings, which aren't really covers. There were him working with Dick Smith, but it's a whole nother story. But I love his covers of the Who stuff. Obviously, Pinball Wizard is exquisite with his band. One Day at a Time, not the best song, but interesting. But yeah, Philadelphia Freedom on here. His love letter to a tennis superstar, but also to the sound of Philadelphia. The whole Philly International stuff going on at the time. Just like Bowie was doing Fame, this is Elton's version. So yeah, multi-channel. This was the way that I listened to the record many times until I got this guy. So this is the original remaster Bernie Grundman gatefold version of it, and it just sounds amazing. I don't have a first pressing. I don't have anything crazy like that. Weirdly, I like this record more than Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, but I have more silly versions of Yellow Brick Road. I think it's sort of easier to get silly versions of that. But nonetheless, this is, the black vinyl release is part of his recent slate of re-releases, and they've been fantastic. Really tremendous ways of actually getting stuff on vinyl. Beautiful pressings, exquisitely done, and for me, has been sort of a definitive version of it until, of course, this guy. So this is so first of all, if you look at the cover, so this is the sort of original, sort of the printed here, and you can see it's probably hard to see, but this is actually metallic and sort of under, like, pressed in embossed of the actual Fantastic. It's going to be easier when I actually take off the plastic. 2 LP set on color vinyl, and including the original album and previously unreleased session demos and live performances from 2005, with a 28-page booklet including newly compiled scrapbook, compiled scrapbook, sleeve notes, and Elton's 1974 diary entries. So, do I need another version? Well, of course not, but of course I do. So let's crack this open and see what it looks like inside, as carefully as I can. So we will keep the sticker, and on the back is the barcode, which is also helpful when I actually put it on a Discogs. But yeah, it's interesting. It's the painting actually shines much more, and yeah, it's going to be very hard to see, but you can see there's a little bit of reflection on there. The Elton John, same thing in the bottom. Real beautiful version of it, super shiny, and yeah, if you compare them, the colors are slightly desaturated on the new one. They're a little bit more painterly. It's quite excellent. Beautiful cover. All part of this stunning gatefold. The original gatefold painting. Back in the day when they knew how to do this sort of stuff exquisitely well. Let's do this without breaking anything. Okay, so the record itself, the inner, right? The band, Elton pre-hair transplant days, and going. So before we look at the booklets, let's look at how the records themselves show up. They are, much to my chagrin, and yet to, most people's pleasure, they are sleeved in these paper printed sleeves. I would have preferred that they were actually in they were actually in polyline sleeves, but what are we going to do? So this is side 3, side 4. Let's look at side 1 and side 2 first. So this is the record itself, right up to curtains, unsurprisingly, curtains being the last track. And then the record itself has this printed inner with the side 1 and side 2. And the record itself looks like this. So it's this sort of psychedelic blob color. You can see it sort of works a little bit better on one side than the other. But yeah, with the Captain Fantastic logo in there. Limited edition press vinyl. So despite the fact that it's been in paper, it actually looks pretty clean. I don't see lots in the way of paper residue, etc. Just put it here. It's going to go through the degritter, of course. Again, for those doing the drinking game, you're welcome to take a sip every time I say the word degritter, but it really has, it's right there. It really has changed the way that my record collection is actually dealt with. And then there we are, music by Elton John Band, A Voyage Beyond the Yellow Brick Road to the Fabulous City of Poptropolis. There we go. So this is where all the extra stuff is. And Tell Me When the Whistle Blows, Captain Fantastic Take 1. Writing, We All Fall in Love Sometimes, Captain Fantastic Take 2. Bitter Fingers, Side 4, Someone Saved My Life Tonight. These are live in 2005. Gotta Get a Meal Ticket, Better Off Dead, and We All Fall in Love Sometimes curtains. So what is not on here is the Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, which I am, if I'm not crazy, is it from All This in World War II? Or is it from, yeah, it's from one of those. I can't remember, but I just know that it was recorded at the time and actually released as a single. I have it on vinyl somewhere, I think. Anyway, regardless, there's that. And then the record itself looks like this guy. So an even darker and more somber mush of the color. You can see, I mean, the difference between this and black vinyl, it gives a little bit of pop. And as has been mentioned many times on this channel, colored vinyl like this used to be just terrible. It was just aesthetic, sort of like a picture disc, which is not the good way to listen to stuff. But the pressing quality has gotten so to a point that it's at least the equal, if not sometimes superior, because it's actually done in smaller numbers. So that's just something to keep in mind. Do we need to have the special limited edition colored vinyl version? No, of course not. But, welcome to collection. You could also just listen to this on streaming. But we're not going to do that as often as we are this way. And this is the booklet. So it's not a booklet that actually fits inside. It sort of sits in the gatefold for what it's worth. And it's a pretty robust booklet. So yeah, Beyond Belief, The Extraordinary Story of Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy. Yeah, an essay, different elements, diary entries, artwork, the famous Time magazine covers, Rock's Captain Fantastic. Look at that, Elton John, amazing. Back when there was a Time magazine printed. The Elton John Fan Club. Welcome to the Elton John Fan Club. There you go, by Linda Malarkey. Of course, it's a Malarkey. Cultivate the Freshest Flower, playing live, the whole essay. So this, just a beautiful, and there's the songs written in 1974, and then sort of going through all those different elements from the diary entry. And then the 50th edition credits. So what do we have here? We have the management, we have compilation producers Matt Sill. I'm just seeing whether it's an essay written by Daryl Esley, excuse me for mispronouncing the name. I'm seeing where the mastering information, paper clippings, courtesy of some press are excluded from the archival sources. Thanks to David Johnson for contribution to the sleeve notes. All illustration and book extract by Alan Aldridge, courtesy of Captain Fantastic Enterprises. LP remastered by Bob Ludwig at Gateway Remastering. That's interesting. And LP2 mastered by Lursen Mastering. Vinyl cut by Jeff Pesky, excuse me, P-S-C-H-E, Pesh. at Abbey Road Studios, London. So I am, yeah, remastered with the original tapes. I was pretty darn certain this one was Bernie Grunman. Let's see if I can find this quickly. The odds are probably some remix by Deluxe, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, God forbid it actually. So these are all the engineered and remixed. So this is so Gus Dudgeon went and did a bunch of stuff to all of these records at some point in time. But I am curious whether the original, and by original I mean the one that came out a few years ago, in paper-lined paper sleeves, as I say, let's see if I can see a BG. I thought these were Bernie, but I also don't see an RL, so I don't know what's going on. It's entirely possible that these were mastered by somebody totally different. It's hard to keep track. All I know is that they sound great. And the new one, LP one's been done by Robert Ludwig, which is very interesting, or at least that's the original credits. So yeah, that's our just sort of initial look at this guy. The exquisite recording. One of my favorite records. Certainly one of my favorite records by one of my favorite artists. There is another live recording which is coming. That's a limited edition. We'll do an opening of that when that shows up. But in the meantime, it's just worthy of celebration. This fantastic record called Captain Fantastic. For thatshelf.com, I'm Jason Gorber. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to go listen to some music now. Let me know in the comments what you think of this particular recording, and we will see you next video. All the best. Take care.